like I made the decision to step away for a number of years, over a decade. I have kids, they were young. I needed to make sure they were my focus and not have any outside distractions. And once I did that and they're happy and healthy, I really felt as if my story had been written for me for so many years. And I felt that it was time for me to take ownership of my own story, right? And I thought that it was time for people to have some type of inspiration or hope and see that once you get knocked down in life, you don't have to stay there. And you can pull yourself back and you can come back from failure. And I thought that my journey, my story could help people. And so that's why I made the decision to, come back out on the scene. Failure is not forever. That once you've made a poor choice or you've gotten knocked down, that you don't have to stay there. Your biggest mistake does not have to be the end, right? You can come back from failure and your life can be great again. And I think so many people need to hear that. And I think a lot of people are living in denial because everybody in this life, if you haven't been knocked down in some capacity, right? That could be anything, right? That could be poor choices that you've made or poor choices that have been made like for you, right? Bankruptcy, divorce, death, whatever that looks like. People feel as if they have run into a roadblock and they do not know how to claw themselves out of that and get back to maybe the success that they had before or even close. And I hope that people, when hearing my story, my journey through life, they're like, oh yeah, she's been at the top of the top, made poor choices, been knocked down, and wow, she's back. Oh, maybe I can do even just a small percentage of that and reclaim my life. And it is the reason that I do it, really. People cannot relate to being an Olympic champion. They cannot really relate to winning a gold medal. They can't even relate to going to prison, many people, right? Yeah. But everybody on this planet can relate to some type of failure happening in their life, right? And so that's where the bond is. That's where the connection is. It also helps that people have seen me like in the media and in the news, like in essence, grow up on their TV screens or on their social media feed. So there is that connection. And really, like, what am I getting out of it? The idea that I just want to help people, right? I want to help people live longer, better lives. Like I have a passion for fitness and sport, and want people to get out of their comfort zone and do what they love to do in that regard. But I also want people to know that they're not their biggest mistake, right? Yeah. That they can create their own narrative. It does not need to be created for them. And that's why I came back out, because the narrative on Marion Jones had been created, and I refuse to allow that to be the only narrative about my life. Something that somebody else has written about me. Well, it's my faith in God, of course, my family, who's incredibly supportive, and who really has been the rock in my entire life, even when I made decisions to distance myself from them as a young 20-plus-year-old. But all along they've been there, and knowing that their support through everything is paramount in my life. That has been massive. And of course, the outpouring of support since I've come out and since I've shared my story with the world has been so inspiring. And it just lets me know that people need to hear this, right? People want to, or maybe sometimes don't, but they need to hear that, hey, anybody can do this. You can do this, even in your small little community, wherever that is, right? Where you feel unheard or unseen or any of that. Like, you can make a mark on your life. You can create, reframe, reinvent yourself to be something incredible. Well, the world only sees like the end product, right?
Yeah.
They don't know that this has been a journey of mine for a very long time, and one that I had to, in essence, disguise for many, many years for lots of different reasons. But I just felt in that moment, it was very organic. It wasn't like put together. It was just time. I had been living my open life in my world for over a decade. But because I had chosen to be away from the media and away from the spotlight, the world didn't know. And I almost had forgotten that the world didn't know because I was just living my authentic self. And it was brought to my attention that the world does not know, Marion. So I felt that there were enough people in this world that still were interested in what I was doing, who I was, where I was, and I felt that it could help people, right? That somebody who listened might have been just dealing with needing or thinking they have to cover up who they are, right? And I wanted to share that it doesn't matter who you are, right? It doesn't matter if you've been covering it up for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? Somebody needs to know that it is okay to be your true and authentic self. And so that's why I posted the video. And so it's a wonderful feeling to just be happy in my own skin, as they say. So it's so interesting that when I made the decision to come back out on the scene earlier in this year, there were a lot of doors closed, right? Like some people who were still so upset with the decisions that I made however long ago. And there were also so many people so supportive. And so when I got the call last year about potentially being on the show, I had to, in all honesty, watch the first 2 seasons, which are amazing. If you haven't watched it, you should before you watch season 3, the one that I'm on. And this is not just because I was on season 3. Season 3 is the toughest missions, challenges of all of the seasons. And I cannot wait for you all to watch it and see really what we went through. And not just what we, the 16 celebrities, went through, but get a little taste of what these men and women do to protect our freedom all over the world. Because ultimately, that's what it is. This is a little glimpse as to what our special forces, this is how they train. These are some of the missions that they have to become experts in. And it makes a little, it's a little comical at times because you're dealing with 16 celebrities or humans that have no background in the military. Some of them are not even athletes. They're not very physical or any of that. And you thrust them into doing some very, very uncomfortable things in conditions that are not always kind. And that sometimes makes it a little comical, which makes it for a great show, right? You have these challenges that most people couldn't do, right? And then you put 16 humans that most people have seen on their television doing much different things than jumping off a bridge or jumping onto a helicopter. And it interests you. And then it's a little funny at times just to see how hard it is and us getting out of our comfort zones. And to me, that's a big part of it, Julia, doing something that was out of my comfort zone. I've just been a very comfortable space for a long time. And I think that sometimes you need a little fire under your bottom to like kind of help like put things back in perspective. And no doubt my experience with season 3 of Special Forces did that. And it's funny because you would think that the athletes, there was a number of us on the show, you would think that we have an advantage. And I think our physical capacity, our ability to be disciplined certainly helps with that. But some of the other mental aspects of it, our background in sport didn't necessarily prepare us for some of these challenges. And we were just like everybody else. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the show has put it all together for you all.